Hey guys, it's Kyla at the MJC, and I'm back with the next section in the marital settlement agreement or proposed marital settlement agreement that we have been working through here. We're going to talk about payments for child support, arrearages for child support, and maybe if we're very lucky, we'll also talk about variable costs. But before I get going, as always, just a reminder that nothing in this video is intended to be legal advice. It is a video, so I'm not able to analyze your situation and to go through whether this is the right form for you, whether a court is able to approve your proposal, or whether what you're asking for or agreeing to is in your best interest. So we'll get into this here. So we just completed the child support section above, and you did all those calculations and you put in what that final number was going to be. Now you're going to put payments for child support and or maintenance. So you remember all the way back at the beginning, if you did maintenance, oh my goodness, we have to scroll all this way up here. You had this section where you talked about maintenance payments. So I don't know why it says maintenance and or maintenance down here, but we will fill it in if you're requesting child support. If you're not requesting child support, then we would say here you don't need to include the maintenance amount. So if you have agreed for there to be child support, so if you have a number here, or for those of you who are going forward separately, if you have this where you intend, so you can see like here, this was the last iteration we did where the person intends for there to be a number but doesn't know their ex's income, so isn't able to put a number. For those of you who are joint, you would have a number that you would agree to here. If you do not, so if your number is 0, where you ended up is you want this to be 0 here, then you can say no payments are ordered and move on to the next section. For those of you who either have a number written here or have it blank, but blank because you don't know your ex's income and so you're wanting the court to calculate it in court, you're going to check B, and then you're going to indicate whether you want this to either come payments to be made directly to the trust fund. So I should note, at this point, a lot of folks say, well, I just want my ex to pay me directly, or people who are joint say, yeah, we just want to pay it directly between us. Unfortunately, there isn't a mechanism to pay it directly. It has to go through this Wisconsin trust. So if you want, you can get legal advice to talk about your situation and what you want to happen. But as far as the forms go, that is a no-go to propose to have it done directly. It's got to go through the trust fund. But if you have someone who's self-employed who would like to send the check directly to the trust fund rather than having it withheld from their check, you can do that under number 1. Number 2 is if you're going to have it automatically withheld from the payor's check. So in our situation, John is our payer. If we want to have it come automatically out of his check, we'll list his employer here. And so you'll want to put the payroll address if you know it or can find it. So for those of you who are joint, you already have this information. You can go back to the other person's financial. You can see here, we know John's employer information, and we know sort of all about them. If you're in a situation where you're filing separately and you don't know this information, you could try to look it up. So if I know John works at Mario Brothers Plumbing, I can see if I can find their information. Or if I know my ex works for Amazon, I can see if I can find Amazon's payroll information. A lot of that stuff, especially for larger companies, may be available online. But if you cannot find it, you've searched and you're just not able to, then you can go ahead and leave this blank if you are not filing together. For those of you who are joint, that's something that you'll have to find. So the person who is paying will have to contact their, either look at their pay stubs and see what they can find, or contact HR and say, hey, where is the address of our payroll office? But for those of you who are filing separately, you're still supposed to try as hard as you possibly can. But if you are not able to get it, then go ahead and just leave these lines blank. But I've gone ahead and filled them in. We're going to have them do it by income assignment because John is not self-employed. He works for this company here. The next section is arrearages for child support. So arrearages are back amounts of child support. The back amounts could have come up in any number of ways. If you have a temporary order and a payment has been missed, that could be a way that there might be arrears. If you've had a previous case, so maybe between the two of you guys there was a paternity case before you got married for one of your kids, and a few payments were missed in that. That could be a way arrears would come up. It could be that you and your spouse are agreeing to or proposing to have this order date, back to the date of filing. So the date that you file this marital settlement agreement, not the date that you're actually in court. So then obviously there'd be some back amounts accrued. However they've accrued, if there are arrears, or even if there aren't, we're going to fill out this section. If there are no back amounts, so if child support has never been ordered in the past, you guys don't have a temporary order for child support, you've never had a previous case for child support, nothing like that, then you'll check A, and boom, you're done. On to the next section. If there is an order for child support, but the person who was supposed to pay has made all of the payments like they were supposed to, you're going to check B. So that'd be, if John was supposed to pay Jane $200 a month, and he's done that. He paid every month $200, and they're good. We can do B. If there are arrears, so at least one payment has been missed somewhere, or you think there might be, C is saying that, if there are any arrears, we just want to set them to 0. Do note that you can't set arrearages owed to the state to 0. So arrears can be owed either to the other person or to the state of Wisconsin. And this one is saying that any arrears owed to us. So Jane would be saying, if John owes me any child support arrears, I just want to set anything he owes me to 0. That would be C. If you're just saying, if there are any, let's just make it 0 and start brand new. D is where you're saying, look, whatever number is reflected in the state's computers, we just want to take that number and pay it off through a monthly payment. And then here you put how much you think the payment should be. If you guys are doing this together, the amount that you have agreed to. If you guys are doing this separately, so you're one of the folks going forward contested, then whatever number you're proposing. Keeping in mind the court will check you for reasonableness. You can propose $1 million a month, but if your ex, doesn't make $1 million a month, the court might not be willing to order it, but you can sort of put whatever you'd like. And then beginning, you put a date when you want that payment to begin. Again, we often put the first of the next month, but you can put any date that if you are working together, that you agree to, or if you are going forward contested, any date that you want to propose. So that would be doing it that way. And then E is very similar to D. So E would be if we want to change the amount of the arrears. So let's say John owes Jane $5,000, but she's feeling generous and she wants to forgive half of that. So she wants to say, even though the computer says he owes me $5,000, I just want to reduce that down to $2,500. Then you would put the amount that you want the arrears to be. And then here you'll indicate if it's going to be paid through a one-time payment. So if John's just going to pay Jane $2,500, you would check 1, and then put the deadline by which John has to make that payment. So, we'll put of this. Or if you go, they can't pay off that whole amount, even though I'm, agreeing to this number, they still can't pay it all off. You can also do it by a monthly income withholding. And then just like before, you'll put in either what you're agreeing for it to be or what you're proposing for it to be, and then a date when it's when the payments will start. And so then one thing I will note is not a lot, but some people who are filling this out say, hey, and you're filling this out separately, and they say, hey, you know what? Child support has never been ordered in our case, but I feel like the other person should have been paying child support. So I'm going to check E, and I'm going to write down the number I think they should owe me. Unfortunately, that isn't the way this works. This is used for altering the arrears you already have, so typically by agreement, but if you're not agreeing, you can propose certainly to change it as well. So if you're someone where child support has never been ordered between you guys, you're going to be up in in letter A. Again, even if you want there to be arrears set, it's going to be up in A. So just be aware of that. The very last option here is F. F is saying, court, I want you to figure out whether there are arrears, and if so, how they're going to be paid. And that's F there. All right. Great, so we've got that filled in. Last but not least, we'll do variable costs. So variable costs, if you don't have shared placement, you don't need to do the variable cost section. Skip it. Variable costs is only required in situations where there is shared placement, and certainly some courts will only order it if there is shared placement. So if you don't have shared placement, we typically say go ahead and skip variable costs. If you don't have shared placement, but you think variable cost is something that you want to do, again, that'd be a legal advice sort of question to see if it's possible in your situation. If you do have shared placement, though, the next question we ask is, do you have, and again, this is for Milwaukee. I can't necessarily speak to what other counties want. But we say, okay, do you have a specific cost that you've identified? So is it tuition? If your child goes to basketball camp every year and so needs to, you guys need to figure out how to pay that. Do you have like a specific identifiable cost? If so, you'll fill out the variable cost section. If you either don't have shared placement or don't have a specific cost that you've identified, then you can go ahead and skip that one. But assuming you need to fill it out, you'll check the box by 5 to put us in the variable cost section. And then down here, you're just going to indicate how you're going to split it. If it's going to be 50-50, you don't have to write any percent in. If it's not going to be 50-50, that's where you would check other and write in the way you're going to split it. So if they were going to split it 75-25, that would be how that would go. And then just like the previous section that we dealt with, sorry, there's some scratching noise back there. If you're trying to, the reimbursement section is going to be similar to the reimbursement section that we discussed up above for uninsured healthcare expenses. So basically here it's saying how long, so the cost has happened. You had to pay the cost for a variable expense. How long do you have to send the other party a written request saying, hey, here was the amount, please pay your half, or please pay your 75%, or whatever. So here, you'll put what that amount is, or what that days is. So here, you have to submit a written request within 30 days of when the cost happened. And then 2, once that request is received by the other person, how long do they have to pay? So we'll go ahead, and again, 30, it can be whatever number of days you want it to be, 30 days, 60 days, million days, whatever you guys want. And again, this is another one where you can ignore this other days section. All right, well, that is all for this video. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. I hope you found it helpful. If you do have additional questions, you can find us, at least during non-pandemic times, in room G9 of the Milwaukee County Courthouse, where we're happy to help you fill out forms and also to provide information about other legal resources that might be appropriate in your situation. But otherwise, thank you as always for watching, and I hope that you all go out and represent yourselves well.